So what sponsorship is about, it's passion and engagement. And that is where properties and their sponsors should focus their efforts on. If you want to maintain maximum value, make sure that you are focused on the core values. We're going to talk a little bit about this crazy idea I came up with called I Care. And it's just because, remember, we all had mnemonic devices when we were in school to remember things. It was my way of giving myself a mnemonic device. I'm really about individuality. And individuality is, to me, what represents the core of what it is I'm going to talk about. Don't you love that green goldfish? So everybody wants to feel valued, right? You want to feel valued. Your partner wants to feel valued. Your children, your friends, we all want to feel valued. Business is no different. You have to come with a sense of compassion and knowledge for everyone that you deal with. One of the things I ask, because I do a lot of public speaking, is do you have an elevator pitch? Does everybody here, if you got on the airline with that sponsor that you always wanted, would you have your 2-minute elevator pitch about who you are in a nice kind of gentle way? No one's ever raised their hand once. I want you guys to think about who you are. What is your identity? Because if you don't know who you are, then they're not going to know who you are. Practice it. I can tell you mine, although my business partner here tells me I need work on it. So we all need to work on it. But know who you are as a person and know who you are as a property. Be able to get on the elevator with that person, and not in an obnoxious way, but just say, here's who I am. Okay, let's talk about them. Talk about individuality. Do you know the identity of the person you're talking to, or their company? Do you know what their pain points are? Do you know anything about their company? Have you looked beyond their website? You know, say you're a nonprofit. I, for instance, have run nonprofits. I always try to identify who would be the right partner for us, and then find out from them why they would want to partner with us. So what you want to do is really understand who they are. Know in Google News what happened to their company. Know from LinkedIn something about where they went to school, what sports they played. Figure out if they have kids, what are their hobbies. And I know this sounds really trite, but I cannot tell you how many times it has been very important when, for instance, one of our sponsors just had a baby. And my first question was, what's the baby's name? So now all we talk about is the baby. Ask them in a perfect world, what would they want? What would they need? Where are they looking to market? And fit those objectives and build out your package with that in mind. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they need you to help them understand their identity. And we talked a lot about authenticity today. And I guess that relates back to it. Sometimes I find that an overused word because it's just being real. I guess, that's the vernacular of the millennial generation. But I think it's really important to listen to the sponsors that you're speaking to and really understand what their objectives are. I had a guy come up to me, Stuart and I, last night, and he's giving me his DJ stuff. And first he bypassed me for the millennials. Then when he finally came around to giving me, and I wanted to talk to him, giving me his package, he never asked me what I did. Guess what? I could have introduced him to every major festival in North America. He spent so much money on marketing and getting it in my hands and telling me what he did. He forgot to ask me what I did, right? He just missed a huge opportunity because that's what I like to do. I like to connect people. Okay, so content marketing. We got to do a little jargon here. As Stuart, my partner, likes to say, let's give him something to sing about. So that's a fancy way of saying now we've moved away from banners. We've moved away from ads. Ads is advertising. We know this because we get better ROI when we send out messaging that's relevant to our audience, right? Everybody's getting 100, 200, 300 emails. Let's make sure with content marketing that we're giving something they want to read about, that they'll open. And I look at our open rates all the time. I'm very careful and judicious in how I use our email messaging to make sure that we're not over messaging and then we're messaging in a way that's relevant to them, not about us. I first heard the expression from a woman, Maureen Ford, who was one of the 2 female presidents at Live Nation, and I'm very proud to be a friend of hers. She does the sponsorships for Live Nation, and content marketing was a buzzword that came from her. And she explained to me, I had brought together Delta Airlines, who was a partner, and Live Nation together. And they came up with this program because Delta needed content, right? You're sitting on that airplane forever. They wanted to provide, Live Nation wanted to provide some festival feeds. So they were able to build this partnership together around content marketing. And that's an example of content marketing. Content marketing is blogs, it's podcasts, it's webinars, it's all that stuff. It's this stuff that will go up on BizBash site, right? So they have content. We're creating content for BizBash right now. Another example is a partner I work with, Eventbrite, who you might know. We were trying to figure out, brainstorming a way that we wanted to create some original content that would resonate with our listeners. And I personally like webinars. I've learned a lot from listening to webinars. So I came up with the title, 5 Shocking Things You Never Knew About Social Media. And it was funny because the experts we brought in kept saying, well, it's not really shocking, but so much for titling. But what we did talk about with South by Southwest and Governor's Ball and some of these major festivals is how you use social marketing around your event. And Eventbrite has been tracking that and providing analytics. So it was really a very interesting way to provide content marketing that worked for our audience, their audience, and even bring some exposure to the festivals. Activation. Activation is at the core of every sponsorship, right? It brings the sponsorship to life. It's live event marketing. This is what makes the sponsorship stick, and it requires a lot of work. Have any of you been to South by Southwest? Yeah, kind of crazy, huh? They are the master of the activation. In fact, it got so crazy that I think they've kind of pulled back a little bit on their activation, but it can be as simple as wine being served. It can be as complicated as using RFID technology. We're talking to one potential partner about doing something with these bloomin' jellyfish that are at all these music festivals and building an art installation around them. So rather than, and we do have a trade show, we have an exhibition hall at our event, because I do believe that works very well with many of our vendors. But I like to see, if we can do it, an activation that brings to life that particular brand. One activation trend, and this is no news, is social media. And what's great about social media is it's so cheap, right? Activation used to be it's $2 to every sponsorship, or $3. It's kind of a metrics that sponsors look at when they look at yours, event. How much is it going to cost me to activate at your event? Social makes it super cheap and super easy. But, it is we live in a very long tail culture, which means we've really become fractionalized in what we read about. We're all very specialized in what we do. So we want to make sure that our messaging is very tailoring in our activations. I did kind of a fun activation that I wanted to tell you guys about. Last year, I was really trying to get Jägermeister. I knew they had a big marketing budget left. And do you guys know the Jägermeister brand? Crazy stuff, right? So he wasn't interested at all. And then we started talking about doing something really fun in Austin, where he would bring in a mixologist. You guys know what a mixologist is? It's somebody who makes cocktails, with Jägermeister, and then the #1 chef from Austin, and would create a 5-course meal, each one with a various cocktail, and all the food was infused with Jägermeister. And when I told him who we had coming and their Twitter followers, what we did was after every meal, we had the camera set up, and then they could tweet out to their followers. It was a riot, can I tell you? After the 5th, I don't know, we got too far after the 5th meal. But because we had all these celebrities there with all these Twitter followers, Jägermeister was able to achieve their goal of getting more followers and getting more attention to the brand. So that's kind of a fun way of activating. ROI, easy for me to say. Your sponsors are all looking for ROI, right? This is not the day anymore where they'll hand over a check and get a banner and be done with it. So ROI is really important to the sponsor. The reality check for all of us properties is that the sponsor investment has to generate tangible benefits that can be measured, which takes me back to the original. You have to understand what their marketing needs are. It goes back to what is the sponsor trying to achieve? Are they just looking for eyeballs? Are they looking for new customers? Do they are just wanting to build awareness of perhaps a new brand that they're rolling out? Are they looking for hospitality? Do they want to bring, the big cheeses in for a party? What we do is, my approach is much more consultative because I've gotten to know a lot of people in the industry, and so I facilitate relationship building. And I know that certain companies will work with us because that's what we can provide, is access to these high-level folks. But the ROI is something that's only going to be measured by the sponsor. It's very difficult for the property to measure the ROI. But what you can measure is through surveys whether what the goals were that you initially laid out for them were achieved. And that's how you're going to get them back. So you want to make sure that you have post-event surveys, right? So you can't just measure it by the exposure output. You have to revolve it around attention, understanding, engagement, appreciation, and commitment. Now that's a mouthful, but what I'm saying to you is make sure you understand what they're trying to measure. I always give them a post report with impressions and that sort of thing, but we survey all of our attendees. What are the top 5 brands that you remembered at our event? Who did you engage with? Who are you more likely to use? Why would you use them? All of those kinds of things will help with making the case that your event is the right one. And that really deals with follow-up, right? Don't just take the money, make sure that you do the proper follow-up with them. Last thing I want to talk about were eyeballs. And I don't really care about the eyeballs. Look at those sheep. Come on. And look at that quote. Who came up with that? So everybody talks about the eyeballs. And the reason I said this is because how many of you have been asked that question? How many people are coming? How many people are coming? How many people are coming? I get that question all the time. And my events are not that big. I've never run really big events. But what I do is I know who my audience is that's coming, because I'm always surveying them, and I'm surveying them with incentives and all different kinds of things. I know who's in the audience. When I tell people I only have 800 or 1,000 people at an event that I run, I'm told, oh, that's too small. I said, well, wait a minute. It's too small, but do you want to meet the head of, let me do some name dropping, South by Southwest, Dan's Warped Tour, Coachella, Sundance, Tribeca, Toronto. That rings, right? That resonates, because those are influencers. So it's not really about the number. That's advertising. And Lisa Uckman, a person I really respect, who I've seen speak many times at IEG and is someone I call a friend, she says, stay away from eyeballs. You will never win against advertising. And we're not in the advertising business. That's a different conference. So, keep that in mind if someone starts to pull the old eyeballs thing out. Unless you're in the NFL, you don't have eyeballs. So my good friend Albert Einstein had a great point. It's really important to, back to what I was saying before, to really understand who you are as a person, who you are as a property, and really be able to communicate that. So you want to be connect to those brands. And by doing that, you can match your mission up with them. So you can have a very successful, a meaningful relationship. I consider a lot of the sponsors that I work with friends, and they are friends. I play golf with them. Not well, but I play golf with them. So I think it's really important that you build those deeper relationships. And by doing that, it provides meaning to your life and to your work. So I wish you all great success with all of your events, and I hope some of this has been helpful. It's been great speaking with you. Thank you. Take care.